Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
Tuberculosis, also known as the Great White Plague, had killed 1 in 7 people that had ever lived by the early 19th century. A disease that was once thought to be genetic, it became a scourge that would rise to a peak in places like Europe, where it would account for 25% of all deaths. Before modern medicine produced a vaccine, there were very few options for those who would display symptoms of the wasting disease. The most humane treatment was to sequester a patient to one of the many sanatoriums that had been built in the early 20th century. Among these was a facility opened in Louisville, Kentucky to accommodate victims of the sudden outbreak of tuberculosis in the Jefferson County area. The building, originally built to house 50 to 60 patients, was eventually renovated and expanded to be able to handle up to 400 patients. Patients who suffered from the ravages of the disease and sometimes were subjected to barbaric experimental treatments. The sanatorium, long since abandoned, now is known as one of the most haunted places in the world. This case file joined the theorists as they assess the apparition coalition that seems beyond superstition but isn't above suspicion in the Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 194, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I'm Braden.
I'm Zell.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
Before we get into anything, we got some big news for y'all listening to this case file live on Monday, or if you're listening to this on Spotify on Friday. We are live at Contact in the Desert, Saturday, June 26th, from 1 to 2:30. Is that correct, Zell?
1 to 2:30, but I think Saturday's the 25th.
No, Friday's the 25th.
Yeah, Saturday's the 26th.
You got it. June 26th, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We got our own, I believe it's a free room too. You don't have to have a ticket to Contact in the Desert, so we'll make sure to post some links.
Yeah, so we're going to be taking calls on the Cosmic Channel line, 1-833-703-0424. We don't want stories for that, because obviously Cosmic Channels is going to be Sunday the 27th, but we want to hear your thoughts on aliens, the UFO disclosure, all of our interviews on Contact in the Desert. Did they connect any dots from all the speakers we had? So we're just going to be shooting the shit for an hour and a half, having some drinks, hanging out. Think campfire style, but it'll be under the umbrella of Contact in the Desert for one day only.
Yeah, should be fun.
Would be fun.
So we're on for free, hey? We're the fucking openers here, or what?
Oh yeah, buddy.
We're the filler, right. I believe.
Right, that's fair.
We're the free filler. But that's better because then more people can access. So
Well, come on. Think
maybe
about the
it's better.
star power that's coming to contact in the desert, man. I could only imagine.
all the world's best speakers and interviewers live from their home kitchen.
Fucking riveting
Or
stuff.
Eric Von Daniken's like library. Like, I guess, I don't like wherever he was coming in.
Eric Von Daniken's study. I guess on that same note, if you want to tune in to Contact in the Desert, pay the fee and get all the goodies and conferences, me and your boy Dan here hosted a panel on ancient origins of man with, who was it? Eric Von Daniken,
Jason Martell,
Mike Barra,
David Childress,
Xiao Ma, and we're missing one guy off the top of my head, the British dude. Mike.
Hugh Newman?
No, not him.
Not Hugh. Mike.
Hugh.
Fuck.
Huey Lewis? What?
And the news.
Did he bring the news with him?
Anyways, it was fun. We did an hour and a half little. I guess we didn't really have to do much. We just said, here they are. And then they just proceeded to blow each other's minds as me and Dan just said, this is awesome.
I thought you were going to say they proceeded to blow each other. I'm like, wow, all right.
Well,
good. I'm pumping each other's tires hard.
Wow.
easy.
And this is our last time at Contacted the Desert.
And we're done.
Anyways, tonight's case file, we haven't done spooky in quite a long time, and that's exactly where we're headed to tonight because we're heading to Louisville, Jefferson County, Kentucky. Kentucky.
So
fried
how many episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place did you watch before you realized that that's not what this is about?
Too many to disclose.
I've never seen Wizards of Waverly Place, so I must.
What?
I just put on Master of Puppets, man. That's what they fucking talk about a sanatorium. It's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah. It's my research.
So Waverly Hills Sanatorium, like Braden just mentioned, is located in southwestern Louisville, Jefferson County, Kentucky. We've got a lot of theorites out there. There's a lot of people who said when we announced this case file said they live like just a couple hours away or near there.
Or have friends who stayed there last night.
Who stayed there.
Did they know the Colonel? Are they buddies of the Colonel? Do they know the secret?
Secret
The 11
recipe.
herbs and spices.
Yeah, that's fucking top secret shit.
I don't think they just tell anybody about that.
That's fair.
That's locked up in Area 51. We know that. So the sanatorium itself has a pretty long storied history, at least it's almost 100. No, it's about 100 years old at this point. Opened in 1910, originally as a 2-story hospital to accommodate about 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients, which was running rampant in the United States at that time.
Also, it was tuberculosis back then was called a way cooler name, consumption, which is the most terrifying name for a disease. No wonder they had to change it.
Well, it was also, they called it the graveyard cough too. Like it
They
was
called it
pretty
the white plague. That was
Yeah.
another one too.
And like something you need to understand too about tuberculosis is tuberculosis has killed more people than any other infectious disease on the planet.
It's insane.
Right? So the United States is being absolutely ravaged by this at this point in time. It first kind of made its headway in the late 1880s, I think, right? Something close to that. Late 1800s, early 1900s. Kentucky was kind of perfect for it at this point in time. The climate, super marshy and boggy, wet, perfect breeding ground for tuberculosis. And then you had this massive influx of immigration, which resulted in like highly populated areas that were very condensed with people. And, in the 1800s, early 1900s, what were people's like hygiene habits? Absolutely fucking awful at this point in time.
Not great. Yeah.
Right? So it's this perfect storm,
Probably on
right?
my level.
That's fair. That makes sense. And then you have like every house is like a multi-generational household. You're living with your elderly grandparents, young kids. So it's kind of like this perfect storm to spread these infectious diseases. And like, not to mention in the beginning of the spread of this disease, when it first started coming out, there was a lot of artists, musicians, aristocrats, stuff like that were getting tuberculosis or consumption. And, initially, like when women got it, suddenly they started losing weight. They started becoming pale. They started, when they would spike fevers, their cheeks would get red, their lips would get red. And it almost became a fucking status symbol for high fashion at the point in time when it first came out. right? So this fucking shit was spreading like wildfire. They had absolutely no idea what it was until, you know, they kind of started realizing that how it's not spread, or it's not, you know, people don't get it because of bad juju and because they worship Satan or they're vampires. No, this is an actual real infectious disease. And the best place, or the best way to fucking treat these people that are contagious, is by secluding them. And that's where we get what we're talking about right now, a sanatorium.
Now, my question was like, that's not the best way to treat tuberculosis. That was just like, we got to get these people out of town.
Well, they had no treatment then.
You had to resort to that though, because you had to stop the spread, right?
Yeah.
Like, see, look at what we're dealing with right now. What did we do? What was the number one way we fought COVID when it first came out?
We didn't send anyone to sanatoriums.
No, but you locked everybody down. Everybody got locked down. This is what a fucking sanatorium is. It's a lockdown facility to keep these people with tuberculosis in a fucking space and try and treat them.
But these people were like mostly dying, like all of them.
Well,
Yeah.
At this point in time, there was a 50% survival rate with tuberculosis.
That's not great.
Half the people died that got it.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and there was like at that time, early in the 20th century, like you didn't have any real. They didn't really know what caused it. Still, medicine was still in its early, like internal medicine was still kind of in its early days at that point. So you weren't really sure what to do. But the only thing that they could think was that some people seemed to, you know, convalesce, or they seemed to get a little bit better when they were, or the leading theory was that if you could get them above sea level. So they said about like the estimate was like the best theory they had was like 2,200 feet above sea level. So that would equal the pressure of the blood vessels inside the body. And so having them move around and these kinds of activities this would allow them to put less stress on their body. Therefore they could get better.
Now, I'm a simple man. But when you die from tuberculosis, it's just I imagine it's a peaceful death, no issues. You just fall asleep. Is that what happens?
Well, take it from the name consumption, right? The body's basically fucking consuming itself.
I mean, yeah, it's damaging your lungs to a point where you're going to suffocate to death.
And then it goes from your lungs to your fucking bones and to your organs. Like it's a multi-system fucking disease. And like,
so traumatizing, like
totally
unbelievable pain and suffering.
And one of the worst parts about it too is it's kind of like a slow onset disease, right? Suddenly you start feeling under the weather. You don't feel well. And then slowly you develop a cough, and then you start spiking fevers. And then next thing you know, you're a fucking vampire that your body's eating yourself and you're just miserable and you die.
We don't eat ourselves.
Now, you're going to put all these people who have this disease where you die slow, tremendously painful suffering. And at this time, they don't really, know a lot about to treat it. And you have all this suffering in one isolated area. I mean, we've gone through a lot of spooky places, but so far, this looks like a recipe for paranormally activating a place.
It's insane.
This river of pink ooze underneath this fucking place.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like the best treatments that they could possibly think of at this point was pretty much like get people outdoors, get them breathing in fresh air. They were saying that, you would pretty much like this place when it was built with the idea of like lots of sunlight and lots of fresh air. So there's like lots of windows, a lot of the
UV
outside porches
in there
and things like that.
Kills the virus.
Cleaning.
Well, dude, listen, that was one of the treatments though. Like with the advanced cases of TB, they would do a thoracotomy and pretty much fucking cut open your chest cavity and expose your lungs to fucking sunlight.
That is insane.
That's how they thought they would treat it. That
was one of the more extreme treatments. Yeah.
How do you patch that back up?
You don't. I'd say, well, like we'll do that to do like a fucking, sometimes you massage the heart following cardiac arrest, like to try and and you will do that in some fucking extreme situations, but 9 times out of 10, if you crack the chest, you're not coming back. You're going to donate some organs.
I try to find, because there's accounts of in so they would put them on the balconies of these rooms, open air balconies at all times of the year. I was trying to find one of these pictures that says that there is pictures of people like in the snow, just like dying and then getting frozen to death at the same time.
I don't know about I know they have pictures of people like laying out in the snow. Like they had them, they would take them outside and like lay them on the ground so they could, breathe in the fresh winter air.
Well, and then I had read that like some of them wouldn't even be brought in until they had like a nice skiff on them.
Like when you scrape your windows in the morning, fucking get a little frost off there.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that these certain situations helped inspire like the creation of the heated blanket.
Maybe.
Like a lot of these people were fucking swaddled like newborns and had heated blankets and stuff like that and put outside.
You can
in the
find
cold.
there's lots of historical photos and things like that from a lot of these places because like the sanatoriums were like all along the East Coast, like all over their places, lots of high altitudes. Like there's a couple in Colorado. I think there's a couple like in the Appalachians and a lot in the northeastern United States. Like you had all these places and they were places where you would have people who could send their family members or, to these places to get better. And so, there are a lot of pictures and from that, that point in time. And there are ones of them all just like, it's like covered in blankets sitting out on porches, like on a winter day.
They're not wrong though. Like this is even today, like, with like respiratory inflammation disorders or something, like even with the kids, like you guys know what croup is?
Yep.
Like kids, when they have the barking cough.
Yep.
If before the ambulance gets there, they say, take your kid outside if it's cold. A lot of people that have COPD have easier time breathing outside. Like it is kind of like a homemade fucking cure to help open up the airways a bit. It's not going to cure TB, but
might prolong
they're on the right track.
Prolong your chances.
So now the hospital was originally built, or the sanatorium was originally built to house about 50 to 60 patients who were suffering from tuberculosis. The hospital itself actually underwent a renovation because the epidemic became to such a proportion that they started getting more and more people.
Woo, business was good.
And so when you had this many people there, the problem is, like we said, with such a high mortality rate of tuberculosis, the problem was getting those people who had expired out of the hospital without with trying to not traumatize and put extra, emotional and psychological stress on the other patients who are being treated at the facility.
That's a beautiful excuse for laziness. They're like, I don't want to haul this motherfucker down the stairs. Like this is you just saw that Office episode where they have to sedate Stanley and get him down the stairs.
Right. Okay,
right? Nobody wants to carry anybody down the stairs.
I know exactly what you're about to talk about, but before we get there, let's just, if you're watching the live stream, let's show people what this place looked. It's something straight out of a horror movie. Well, that's not the one.
Yeah.
Fucking idiot. What have I done? What have I done?
You blew it.
Oh, I
Tan,
fucking
take it
blew
away. It's over. Shit the bed. Back
It's
to
very
the
large.
notes.
It's a nice looking building. Most of these buildings when they were built were, they spent some money making these things.
There we go.
And they have some very unique architecture for that time.
What do you like when you say
it's like what they said, like neo-Gothic or Gothic or whatever architecture.
You say unique, you mean like fucking perfect recipe for paranormal activation.
It looks like you built it haunted on purpose.
Yeah, 100%. It was built with like orphan's blood and fucking skulls.
Well, I don't know about that.
It looks like it's about 4 stories from the one side. It looks like it's straight out of.
I think the original part is like that middle part, like where you have that part that's sticking out from the center. Like there's that, and then there's like the couple on the outside. But they're like some of that is more recent addition, not more recent, but a couple decades in, they had added those other rooms and renovations to the actual building itself.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Oh,
it's
man.
because I was going to say, like, the more recent photos look like they can handle a little more than 40 to 50 patients.
Yeah.
It looks humongous.
And it is. I mean, it is super spooky now because it's like in a lot of disrepair. Back in its heyday, it was.
Let's get to the spookiest fucking tunnel of all tunnels that you're leading up to.
So when you're trying to remove these bodies from the actual building itself, and you don't want the other patients to see it, what they had to do was remove these bodies through a tunnel, which was also known as which came to be known as the body chute. Originally, it had been used for
tunnel.
Death tunnel.
Yeah, you could call it Death Tunnel. Yeah,
That's a name of a metal band. Death Tunnel.
Well,
fuck yeah.
it had been used to get like supplies and get stuff into there, like move food and things like that through the things. But then eventually they co-opted it to move out the bodies because they were just having so many and having to move them out.
Work smarter, not harder, man. Just fucking shoot them down there.
So how did this work? They would just rifle these people down like a water slide? Like, how does this work?
One last ride, baby.
It's a tunnel. Like it's like a it's a tunnel that goes from for underground, from it's an enclosed tunnel that runs straight from the hospital to the railroad tracks. So you wouldn't see them like moving them across the ground. You still have to you have to physically carry the bodies or move the bodies.
For how long? How long until they lubed up those fucking stairs and just shot them the fuck down there?
Well,
I know
if you look at
seeing
photos,
pictures of it, it's got stairs and then it's got a ramp. Just a ramp. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's a fucking laundry chute.
So here's what
just
I'm
like
saying.
a laundry chute.
Everybody's picturing like a laundry chute that you like throw it in for
garbage
the chute. You just drop these bodies.
But
I don't think it's like that at all.
Here's what I'm saying.
That's how I saw it.
Just open the door and down goes the body.
If you looked at the stairs and the slope, like it's got a decent sized slope to it where it's like, you could get some, you don't think there was one guy, they hired some young guy who's pushing the body trolley down there, and he started treating it like a little bit of a shopping cart where he gets some speed and lifts his legs up, right? Then he's having some fun on there. Woo! Woo!
I see a nice smooth fucking little launch pad there. They were tossing bodies down there.
It's pretty steep.
Curling. They were curling with fucking TB patients and just shooting them down there.
How steep do you think the angle is?
It's pretty steep.
It's not that much because it's like you would have to be able to push stuff that you would get, supplies and stuff you would get from the railroad that I assume like they would drop off shipments of whatever they needed, and then you have to push it up there. So it's just like an incline for like wheeled carts and things like that.
Yeah,
so
grease them up. Grease them up.
But what I'm saying is that like without a doubt that there was some bodies that were maybe weren't handled with maybe the best of care going down this thing. I'm just saying, as a human, as a fellow human, if I was given this job, I would like to say, like at the beginning, I'd be like, we should treat all these bodies with respect and stuff. But very shortly after, I'd be surfing USA. Everybody
do that.
Everybody go surfing.
First one.
Surfing body shoot. Right? 100%. Like very quickly. Like a weekend.
Dude, look how long that was. You know how fucking tiring that would be? Be like, no, not happening. We're launching this guy down here. Weekend at Bernie's, just toss him. You start to treat some of the bodies like this with a little bit of disrespect. You're just adding to some they're dead.
Bigger issues.
They're dead.
Adding to the haunting.
Now, there are some estimates, and then they're kind of thrown around, or kind of like gain some traction within the lore of Waverly Hills, but about how many bodies and how many people had died. But according to Dr. J. Frank Stewart, who is a former assistant medical director at the hospital, he said that the highest number of deaths to occur at the sanatorium in a single year was about 152. So, I mean, that's still a high number because that's still like what?
That's what
still more
blows
than
my
10 a
mind.
month. Like,
that's what blew my mind when you were listening to these shitty fucking ghost hunter shows. Where like upwards of 63 to 70,000 people died in this place. And you're like, listen, this place, definitely not. That fucking math does not add up at all. I'm like, you look at the kill rate of fucking tuberculosis, you look at the mortality rates, it doesn't even make sense. And it's like, enough people are dying from this place, from tuberculosis. It's horrible. Why do we need to fucking blow it up to some ridiculous, unbelievable number?
Yeah, there's some unrealistic. I mean, 150 is still a lot. Like I said, that's still like more than 10 deaths like a month. That's still like 10 deaths a month, which is still a lot. Like
60,000, you need like what? Fucking 3-4 a day?
Well, I mean, that's not per year. Like you said, 60,000. They said 60,000 in the history of that place. So if you had 150, well, I mean, they said the highest was 150. So you could say if there's like 100 or 80 a year, that's still a lot though. I mean, 60,000.
Yeah, but
that's
nowhere
still like
close
100
to
years.
That's an astronomical amount of fucking dead people.
Yeah.
That
it
doesn't
like shut down in like the 60s. Like,
Yeah.
so.
like
So
that.
it was for like 50 years, you know, it was open for 50 years, but yeah. So.
It's shitty because that kind of stuff kind of like mocks the credibility of these stories and stuff. Because you're like, this is already a building for people to die in. There was enough people dying with the real numbers. Like,
so eventually, after the available treatments of the vaccines for tuberculosis came along, medical science, got to the point where it's like tuberculosis becomes a perfectly treatable and avoidable disease. And so the demand for these sanatoriums began to decline. And so in 1961, Waverly Hills was closed down, and then they reopened it a year later to become a geriatric sanitarium. So a place to put old folks. And now there is some of this adds up into some kind of, this could add on, or this kind of compounds the problem of you have people suffering from tuberculosis. Now you have a lot of, elderly patients living in here. Some of them are not 100% all there. Then you get these budget cuts that came along during the 1960s and 70s, which led to, when you cut budgets to these places, these healthcare facilities, we talked about it during the Satanic Panic with like childcare.
Yeah.
You get these horrible conditions, or what we
dealing with
consider
that
horrible
right now
conditions.
too.
Yeah. You end up hiring employees like me and Andrew who are surfing USA on dead bodies down body
Worse
shoots.
than that, dude. You get fucking Ben Stiller from Happy Gilmore. Can I trouble you for a warm glass of shut the hell up? Sleep or I'll put you to sleep. Like,
your
my
back
fingers hurt.
Well, now, your fingers hurt. Now your back hurts because you just got your landscaping duty.
But like, it's sad though, because we're currently dealing with that shit still. Like, our old folks' homes are in deplorable shape due to overcrowding and no budgets. Like, in Canada, they all got exposed during fucking COVID when they brought the military in to help.
Yeah.
Like, sad, dude.
And so in 1982, the state finally closed the facility for good. And so for about 20 some years, about like a decade, the property sat like unused. It was just kind of sitting there. And then you had it purchased in 1996, along with the surrounding land, by Robert Albrasky, who ran
Albrasky.
He ran a foundation called Christ the Redeemer Foundation Incorporated, and he had planned originally to construct the world's tallest Jesus on the Waverly site. And that statue he had probably planned it to stand about 132 feet, because the tallest one at the time, I looked it up. It was like the tallest one at the time that had been completed was the Cristo de la Concordia or the Christ of Peace in Cochabamba, Bolivia, which was finished in 1994. And so it was 132. He had originally imagined it to be like a very similar to the Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil, the one that stands on top of the mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
Jesus.
yeah.
Nothing cleanses a place full of death than a 100-foot Jesus statue. Everyone knows that.
Unfortunately, that never came to fruition. He had planned to turn like the giant Christ statue and also turn the facility itself into kind of like
Jesus land.
Jesus land, or some sort of like mega church, like proto mega church, I assume. And the funding fell through. They never got close to the goal of what they were the money that they needed to raise to actually build one of these things. And so it essentially just fell into disrepair. It just kind of sat in kind of a limbo until Tina and Charlie Mattingly bought the property in 2001. And they originally wanted, and I think they still do want to completely restore the property. And then, but the hospital is falling apart. I mean, it is a large building itself, and you can imagine the maintenance costs of trying to just keep it from falling apart. It could probably be pretty. It's probably
the roof was probably leaking. Once water gets in, like, buildings deteriorate really quick.
And so the Mattingleys have put some money into it. Within the first years of them actually owning the property, they removed the asbestos. That's something you definitely would want to take out of there, that had been in place in its original construction. And then they replaced at least 100 broken windows. Cause I mean, that place is huge. Like there's probably more than 100 broken windows. I mean, I assume
it's probably 1,000 windows in this place, man.
And so they began to run the haunted tours out of there around 2001. And in order to raise money for the continuation of the restoration project, and which they imagine will eventually include a bed and breakfast.
What?
Yeah.
Spooky breakfast. Spooky breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, you can have ghosts with your bacon and eggs, poltergeist bacon and eggs. So,
Booberry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Blueberry jam.
So now
business venture.
Waverly Hills is on a couple of lists for one of the world's most haunted places, or it is recognized on some paranormal lists as one of the world's most haunted place or paranormally activated locations, as Andrew would say.
Well, it makes sense, man. If you look at it, like you had a tremendous amount of people that went through their suffering. You had, some of these people with tuberculosis were tested on. They were trying out things like, let's see if this works, right? So you have these people in great suffering. Then when you get later on, like you have these elderly patients that have dementias, and maybe these people that weren't ready to leave, and they're just like leave this plane of existence, and they're just dealing with these terrible, terrible conditions before their deaths. So it's like, mistreatment and stuff, like all of this it's like a perfect, it's a movie basically of like, this is the Conjuring of how you would get a paranormally activated building in real life.
It's interesting that you brought up the old folks home, right? And people like dealing with conditions in the end of their life. Cause I wonder, how many misdiagnosed people with dementia, like, oh, this guy's talking to himself or he's seeing things. He's got dementia.
Yeah.
Does he have dementia or is he seeing motherfucking ghosts? Maybe he's getting paranormally activated.
Ghosts.
That's a good point later on, for sure. Right?
Yeah.
Then they're strapping these people in and he's getting tormented by ghosts strapped in a bed. Oh,
spooky, man.
And so you have the sanatorium itself, which had been kind of essentially abandoned after the Christ the Redeemer Incorporated couldn't meet their goals and nobody was really staying there. Nobody really
Graceland.
Before the Mattingleys had purchased the land. And so you had groups of like teenagers, as you would, groups of teenagers and stuff coming through there, going in on there and dares. And then you started to have around 2001, you started to have these is when the stories started to circulate about paranormal activity and people who had witnessed ghosts and apparitions within the building itself. So you started to see these stories of like the appearance of a little girl who had been seen running up and down on the third floor solarium, or you had a little boy who had been spotted with a leather ball, and this is one of the better known ghosts, which is considered Timmy, or might be his name Timmy, or referred to as Timmy.
And yeah, he if you watch any of the ghost hunter shows, they're always throwing marbles and leaving balls in the hallway for him, and just waiting for anything to try to make him come and play. So it's
the fuck was that?
Conspiracy crash in your party here, buddy, or what?
Fuck, I got my window open. The wind freaked the shit out of me.
Holy fuck.
Pulled over your green screen?
Dude, that... Are you, like, it's conspiracy over your place, or what?
Give me a fucking heart attack. Oh. What were we talking about?
Dude, I
talking about the ghost of Timmy.
My window.
Why don't we talk about rainbows and lollipops after that?
Braden, you've recorded a lot. I've never seen your green screen move because of the wind.
Dude, I'm telling you.
It's we're in the middle of a heat wave here on the island, and it's so fucking hot, and I have all the windows in my house, and I have a window just to my left here. I have it wide open.
Oh, and no, stop. Just in all honesty, it's conspiracy over at your place.
No one's here.
You swear.
Swear, I have a dog, and
because there's no way wind would fucking move your curtain like that. It would like be all like wispy, and that makes that look like somebody grabbed your fucking green screen. So if you're not lying, you need to stop podcasting right now and get the fuck out of your house.
Yeah, no, okay, don't fuck with me.
Of all people, I'm going to be the guy to fuck with you about this.
It didn't look natural.
It did not look natural at all.
I felt it. I felt the fucking breeze.
Okay.
Braden's officially getting paranormally activated.
It just spooked me. It like I did get scared. Mr. Conspiracy is in the Yukon.
You moved into a new house, right?
Yeah. This is my first week here.
Are you by yourself? Or you got no
Somebody's over there. Don't fucking.
No one's over
here.
here.
Fucking scam.
Do you guys have Do you guys have the law or like the realtor law like policy that you have to disclose if a place is haunted? Do you have that?
I don't know for a rental, probably not.
Okay. I know we have that in some or at least in some states, like they're legally obligated to disclose if a place is haunted or not.
They have to tell you if somebody died in there, right?
Died in the house.
But they also like haunted. No, like legit, like if it is considered to be haunted.
I don't think we got that in Canada. Like you don't have to disclose it's haunted but definitely death in the house. But Braden, did you inquire when you got that place?
Isn't it out in the middle of nowhere? Didn't you say your neighbor lives like?
It is.
Is that an EMF meter?
Yeah, it is. I thought it just went off.
It did a little flash, but
Nothing.
all right. Okay, well, while we get this sorted out, because this derailed the pod a little bit. Let's we're gonna refill some beers, and we'll be right back.
Our bodies come in different shapes and sizes, so doesn't it make sense that our weight loss plans should too? That's the beauty of Noom. They build a personal plan that factors in dietary restrictions, medical issues, and other personal needs so your plan works for you. Noom doesn't restrict or shame when you want to treat yourself. Their flexible program focuses on progress instead of perfection. You don't have to give up carbs or anything. And with their daily lessons, you can learn something new about your food choices every day. After just a few days of using the app, I learned how to recognize cues for overeating and how to choose the right foods to feel full. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's NOOM.com. And check out Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
We're back.
Woo, we're back. I had to do a hard sweep of the house because
Anything?
it's creepy. No, nothing. My doors were unlocked.
Oh,
but
fuck.
They're all locked now.
I wonder if, you know what, maybe somebody fucking popped in. Maybe it's one of those fucking cannibal fucking bush people.
You live near a place called Crystal Lake. You live at Crystal Lake.
Or, ever since you're here for Pod Week, since you left the Studio Demon, I have not seen her. No, not even an inkling of the Studio Demon has not been here since you left.
Don't put that on me. No.
Hey, I'm glad you took it away with you to fucking Campbell River. That makes me
It's
happy.
not here.
I think it might be. Did you take anything from the studio home with you? We might have switched webcams by accident. That might be the Horcrux.
No. What were we talking about? Timmy
and the other spooks that are alleged to
Let's go
haunt
through Timmy.
Waverly Hills. You have not only Timmy, who is one of the more popular attractions for the haunted tours and things like that, but you also have reports of people seeing a ghostly hearse that appears in the back of the building and seems to be dropping off coffins, or you have a one of the other more gruesome poltergeist or ghost seems to be a woman with bleeding wrists, an elderly woman, I think has been described, who wanders around and cries for help, except when people, those who have seen her seem to say like when they approach her, she runs off. It seems a bit confused or
Is she crying, saying my fingers hurt?
I mean, not sure.
My fingers hurt.
And so you have other legends that have popped up since the time, at least since the early 2000s and 90s. You got men in white coats seen walking through. I think one of the more popular signs of paranormal activity is people have said that they've smelled actual cooking of food. Sometimes that comes through some parts of the building when they're going through on some. You can literally go there on a paranormal tour.
I'd
at night
love
and
to.
like that. And the Waverly Hills location itself has been a site for many. Since it's named as a most haunted site in the world, it has become a very popular location for a lot of ghost hunting shows and haunting shows
For good reason.
For good reason. And so you have these things that people have said that they've smelled the cooking of food, which would be nigh impossible in there. I mean, there's no facilities in there, anything that's serviceable at that point. So there's nothing really in there. Like, I don't know. They walk through that place. They say they're trying to restore it, but I've seen pictures at these ghost hunting shows that go through there. It's like that place is
it's falling apart.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's falling apart. There's spray paint, there's graffiti everywhere. Like I don't think
it looks like quite possibly the worst bed and breakfast.
Wait, worse than where we stayed on Skid Row?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that place was nice. It just was on Skid Row.
And it had that little interesting cleaner that wouldn't leave.
Hang out in the room for hours.
Yeah.
Was he trying to fucking clean shit with the strong arm?
Basically.
Yeah. One of the more storied locations within the building itself is room 502. So
Sounds spooky already. I don't know why, but
now, according to the stories and the Waverly Hills lore, there was a nurse that was found dead in room 502 in 1928. And it is said that she had committed suicide by hanging herself from a light fixture in the room. It's said that she was age 29 at the time of her death, and that perhaps
and presumed pregnant
and unmarried at the time, and that these circumstances had perhaps been the impetus for her suicide.
Now, I just need to tell everyone about this event, because there's a great episode of Most Haunted where they go and they have like a psychic come in who they're walking into room 502, and as he walks in, he goes, is there salt? I taste salt. Is there blood in my mouth?
Sulfur,
is there
I think
blood?
he said.
Salt, blood, or sulfur? And everyone looks. They're like, no, nothing. He's like, I taste blood. An abortion. An abortion happened. She did an abortion. And then everyone there's like, oh, what? And then the one girl goes, and she hung herself? Did she actually commit suicide? And he like side eyes her, and he's like, yeah. And it's honestly painstakingly awkward. Like everyone's like expressions in it, and his. I highly recommend it. But yeah, some people say that this woman may have performed like her own abortion on herself. Before hanging herself.
Well, there is a little bit more that we've heard on this. Now, there've been a few mediums that have actually gone there and channeled some spirits, and apparently the name of this nurse was Mary Hilleberg. And one of the stories goes that she fell in love with a married intern that was there for a small practicum. Ooh. And had a family that lived a few states away. So they had kind of like this hidden love that they hid from everybody else at the sanatorium. And one morning she remembers waking up to the smell of coffee and becoming nauseated and started vomiting. And much to her chagrin, she was pregnant. And she tried hiding it from this doctor as long as she could. And he ended up finding out. He was absolutely furious. Didn't talk to her for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden came to her room and was like, listen, let's run away together. Let's go out west. I want you to meet me in room 502 in the middle of the night. And we're going to run away together. So she goes and waits for him in room 502, where there's 3 men waiting for her there already that grab her, hold her down, and perform a fucking abortion on her.
Oh, fuck.
Now, the abortion goes south, and she ends up
'Cause
fucking
duh.
bleeding she ends up bleeding too much, and she ends up dying, so they end up grabbing her and making a mock hanging. And then that's how she's found. And the nurse that finds her found it extremely peculiar because she was covered in blood, and that didn't make sense because she hung herself. And they assumed that the blood was from the abortion.
See, now thinking about that story, when I heard it the first time, and I was like, it seemed interesting to me that you would perform a self-abortion and then kill yourself when you could just get 2 birds stoned and just hang yourself. Like if that was your end game, like it seems weird to put yourself through that kind of torture.
Yeah.
So then when you're telling me this murder plot that doesn't sound, too crazy, again, huge recipe for a fucking absolute paranormal activation.
Well, the crazy part too is about this room 502 that apparently in 1932, which was, I don't know how many years later, but not many, apparently a nurse leapt to her death from there. 4 years. A nurse leapt to her death from that fucking building as well, from that exact same room. It's fucking 502, man. It's paranormally activated. Doesn't get much more paranormally activated than that. You got fucking Bush League abortions and hangings and fucking jump. Like,
Want to know a weird coincidence?
Sure.
It's just struck me as that's my new address is 502.
Oh, fuck. Now,
just end the call. Shut it down. I don't want to talk to you.
I'm deleting Braden from the podcast.
That's not real.
Let's get rid of him.
Delete him from the podcast.
Hang up.
He's been
We're done.
compromised.
Yeah.
This is over.
That's not real.
He's been compromised. That's it.
So now that is one of the stories that is perhaps the longest lasting and probably has the most impact on most people who when they tell that story. But like we mentioned before, the ghost of Timmy seems to be the one that it probably has like the most interaction, or people have said that they've had the kind of interaction. If you go back, I watched an episode of Ghost Hunters when they revisited Waverly Hills for like this. They've gone back there at least once or twice. They went back there for a live episode, and they said that they had placed a ball down in the hallway where Timmy is said to be his ghost is said to be most active. And when they put the ball down, they said where they originally put it, and then they kind of walked around the floor a little bit, and when they came back to where the ball was, it had moved approximately like 16 feet like down the hallway. Like there was no breeze. They said that there was no breeze, there was nothing around, there's nobody. Everybody who was on that floor was with them, moving around with them to different rooms, doing their investigation of the paranormal investigation of the building itself. And when they came back, that ball had moved. They didn't see anything though. Well, they didn't see anything. They didn't see anything. Well, they saw the video, like they had a camera focused on the ball itself, I guess when they originally put it down. And then you can see the like footage of the ball actually moving, not rolling down and moving the 16 feet, but you can see it like moving by itself, like rocking back and forth, fractionally. But
that's even spookier than just moving.
Wait, so it didn't roll. It was actually like it was like
no.
It was picked up.
Well, they had put it like they said from where they had put it down and where they found it originally, it was 16 feet. Like that's where it had been.
Right.
Now
they didn't really
listen.
I don't think they really looked any for signs for versus rolling versus lifted up and picked up and placed there. But
I'm a believer in hauntings. I've had experiences. I believe that this place has all the ingredients to be haunted. But this one aspect of like this ball rolling 16 feet, this building was built fucking so long ago. If I throw a fucking marble on my floor right now, chances are it's going to roll somewhere. The place I'm in now is like 1956. Like you know what I mean? Like the construction wasn't the great. And a lot of these things don't stand the test of time. Things shift, drop, right? Like you settle. So to me that, when they're like it rolled, I'm like, if this thing fucking started bouncing down the hall and they heard it clickety clacketing, like fucking bam, 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 bounding down the hall, then I'm like, okay, that's terrifying. But when they come back and it's just moved, I'm like, you know what? That could have just been a slope in that part that isn't visible to the naked eye. But if you threw a level on that bad boy, you'd be like, oh, she out.
Dude,
Yeah, but
any
the
hardwood.
fact that it rocked back and forth and not rolled, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Did it rock back and forth and like was picked up, like pushed?
No,
Or
like
did it
I mean, they
roll?
had a camera focused on it. I think when they originally put it down, they didn't. I don't think they didn't have a camera on it the whole time, like while they were walking around. Like when they originally put it down, it kind of rocked back and forth like a little bit. Like nobody was touching it.
Right.
Like they put it down for like a couple seconds and then it kind of rocked back and forth. But they didn't have any footage of it actually moving from spot to spot.
Right.
So they didn't have any of that footage. This episode of Ghost Hunters was pretty good. They had ECW legend Elijah Burke, and I use the term legend loosely because I have no idea who he is.
ECW.
Is ECW still around?
I don't
Is
know.
that still a thing?
WWE bought it, didn't they?
Okay. They had this guy in there, 6 foot, huge, tall guy. He was freaked out of his mind. He said that he saw at least one strange apparition at the end of a hallway or something, which he originally thought was like a reflection of himself, like in a window. Like he thought the moon was casting like a reflection on the thing, and he said he waved at it. It didn't wave back, so he knew it wasn't his reflection itself. And then it's something, or someone or something had moved around a corner, and he didn't know what it was. So that he was pretty freaked out. They were all standing together. He was talking about his experience in there, and then you hear some type of scraping sound in the background, and he was out. Like he was gone. Like that dude screamed and took off.
He could have suplexed the ghost, man. No problem.
He was not having it. So
Get the tables.
Yeah.
Well, even in the most haunted episode I watched, they have like in the wing where they would obviously store the bodies, they have like where you like wheel out the cart out of the wall where they would like hold the bodies. The morgue, yes. And one of the guys gets in there and they just leave him in there.
He gets in
Mm-hmm.
and they slide him in and they leave him.
Locked too. Like,
yeah, and he fucking panics. And when they pull him out,
Oh, really? He panics? That's super shocking.
he has a little bit of a meltdown. And when he pulls him out, he's like, I felt like I was being scratched. And he lifts his shirt and he has visible scratches. Now, there's only
rat in there.
There's only two things, now there's three explanations for that. There's a rat in there with him. Two, he lifted his shirt and gave himself some belly scratches, like enough to draw blood. Or three, like he had a terrible time in there and something, violent went at him.
I could see a ghost being so like, dude, why the fuck are you in here, man? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you trying to accomplish, man? Like, I'm gonna scratch you. Get the fuck out of here.
My space.
Yeah. Like, what are you trying to do here? You don't have to be in here. I had to be in here. Be there.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even like going in the MRI machine. I get a fucking panic attack in there. That gives me the heebie-jeebies. I can't even wrap my brain around that.
I only really found the Ghost Hunter episode, so I watched through that, and it was also the episode where they had, I didn't even know this was a thing, but they had I guess they had a competition, because this episode was like from 2007, and I guess they had a competition where you could go in and you were like to upload an audition video to be a ghost hunter on the show. And so they would like upload these things, and then they had like their finalists. They had the three finalists come on that thing. So you just had these three randos in the ghost hunting episode. And the thing is, like at the end of the episode, I don't think really anybody finds anything like less than they normally do in some of their investigations. Like some of their investigations are kind of spooky, and you're like, okay, maybe that was something. But like even this one was like, I don't think really anybody found anything about like they couldn't get any real good what like they usually do. They get like the thermal imaging and the things like that they kind of catch on camera. Sometimes they didn't really do anything that time. So I don't know if it's just a weak night,
Sounds like they won, in my opinion. That's victory.
Well, you had, and then again, I watched you watched some of the other shows. You had the BuzzFeed Unsolved, and the two hosts of that show, I don't know their names, went in there and they spent the night. They spent the whole night there The one strange thing that did happen is they went to the same floor, I believe, that where people allege that Timmy likes to frequent, the ghost Timmy likes to frequent.
Third floor.
The third floor. And they threw a ball down there to try and, draw out Timmy, to try and, interact with him. And the first toss of the ball, it bounced down the hallway and then seemed to bounce into a side room, or when they went to go found it. And it was underneath where they found it was the written name of Ryan, which is one of the host names. Now I remember. One of them, his name was Ryan, and Ryan was spray painted on the wall where they found the ball.
And they still spent the night.
And they still spent the night.
Get fucked.
Wait, so the ghost can use spray paint?
Well, no, it's like that had perhaps that spray paint had already been there.
Oh, okay.
Or that's what you're led to believe. Like it was already there.
There's I don't want to backtrack too much, but there's still another ghost story from more like the later years in the Woodhaven, when it became Woodhaven in the 60s.
Right.
Which I thought was really fucking cool. So there was this lady that was part of the old folks home. Her name was Doris. And the staff always witnessed this lady, Doris, having full-blown conversations with herself. And she had no diagnosis of dementia yet. Maybe they were thinking she had sundowners, like, on the cusp of dementia, early signs of dementia. But she wasn't diagnosed with anything yet. But they noticed she'd have these conversations. And one of the staff members ended up getting to know her. And it turns out that Doris would always talk about this friend that she had. And later, she told her that she was actually a patient at Waverly Hills when she was a kid, when she had tuberculosis, and she survived. And she went and showed her a picture of, this is my friend. And it was another little girl that was a fucking patient at Waverly Hills that died.
Nope.
Fuck that, man.
Fuck that.
That's fucking spooky as hell.
So yeah, you have these lots of spooky stories that surround Waverly Hills and have, inhabit the history of this place. And for the life of me, I'm like, they say this is the most haunted places, but there are plenty of other places that I've seen that I'm like, this is way more haunted than this place. For me, it's really hard for me to like get into some of these things. I don't know if it's just the shows that we've watched or the investigations that we've seen, which I don't like we could have a conversation about like ghost hunting in general, where it's like you have these ghost hunter shows, like when they go there, does it affect the whole paranormal situation? Like, does them actually, trying to interact with these ghosts, does that does it inhibit the apparition of these ghosts, the technology, or all of the stuff that they bring there?
If I was a ghost and you brought a camera to come and film me being a ghost, there's not a fucking chance I would do anything for you. Not a chance. The second that thing was turned off, I'd be slamming doors.
Same as Ouija, man.
Ouija works, though.
Record that shit.
It works, though, even when you record.
So it's just that thing. It's just like, I don't know what this did to earn the title of like one of the world's most haunted places. Like, I don't know.
Are we getting into final thoughts here? Are we getting into it? Or are we still got stuff to talk about?
Well, did we even talk about the weird entity that crawls on the floor and walls?
Oh, the creepy crawler.
So, yeah, but like nobody ever really talks about that one. Like I found that one. Like I found the information about this entity or this what apparition or whatever it is, and called the Creeper. But I've only found only found it in one or two. I've only found references to it in like one or two places. And you have this.
You know why? It's because it's the people that go in there with nothing and they're just like, hey, let's fucking explore it, and they have a terrible time.
Yeah, you brought it on yourself. You brought that shit on yourself. Why would you go in there to begin with?
So you have this ghost or this poltergeist or whatever you want to call it, that seems to crawl along the floors and walls of Waverly Hills. Some people apparently believe that it's a spirit or perhaps even a demonic force. People believe that it's perhaps a spirit, a human spirit that has been twisted in its trauma or its of death.
You know what it is? It's reverse Peter Parker. We know about this. It's scary as hell.
And so, but the people who encounter it say that they are filled with a feeling of dread or something like that. And, but I've only found that reference in like a couple of places, not a lot. And I don't think most of the shows that I watch, like any of the Ghost Hunter the TV shows, really even talk about that or encountering this.
That's the scariest one.
Well, sure, but it's like it's also like
in description,
people are filled with dread, but I'm like also if I'm hanging out in a dank perhaps mold infested, nearly condemned building, I would also be filled with dread. So the creeper one is like that's something that I didn't find a lot of it. There wasn't a lot of like corroborating reports about this entity, the creeper. So that's why I kind of like write it off. I'm kind of like, well, like maybe one person or two people kind of had that, but that doesn't warrant enough to be like, this is an actual existing entity. I mean, there are plenty of other places that have like hauntings and they're just like, we have seen this, or, when we talked about like, for example, like the Trans-Allegheny Sanatorium, whatever, like that one was like super creepy. And you have like the rooms that are the specific rooms that are like, no, like in this room, we've seen many times spirits interacting with objects, moving objects, things like that, but, like this one, I was like, I only found like one or two people that talked about it. And it's so that for me, it doesn't really like nail it down to be like, like Braden said, like, they brought in a legit psychic. Did that psychic on The Most Haunted talk about the creeper, or did he just talk about the tasting blood and sulfur?
He tasted the blood.
Right.
There's the man in the white coat too that's always lurking around minor treatment. He's kind of fucking scary. Apparently
and
extremely violent and.
Well, I didn't come across any specific stories about the man in the white coat.
I just heard about him. No, I tried. I tried to look up a story for each character that I like heard about, but I couldn't find any specific.
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff I came across of is like people seeing shadows, shadow people, that's a thing. And so I for me, and like I can't understand like why some of these places are like the fully on, like people are like full on, this is the most haunted place or whatever. None of the ghosts seem all of that violent or, tossing things, poltergeist things, or not moving stuff, smashing things. Some people say they hear a little bit like slamming doors, but it's not frequent enough for me to be like, okay, this is the most haunted place or one of the most haunted places in the world, So I don't know.
What's your final thoughts on it, Dan?
So final thoughts for me is that, I'm not saying that when Tina and Charlie Mattingly bought the property in 2001, and then also coincidentally, the legends and stories started circulating in 2001 about that time, around the same time. Perhaps you could draw a connection between that. And then they also kind of wanted to they realized they had a lot more work on their hands than they could possibly turn it into a bed and breakfast. And then maybe they wanted more money or figured it would be quicker to profit from a haunted tours. I think you can make that connection very easily. That's what I think. But I've never actually physically been there. If I physically went there and, experienced some of this stuff and saw some of these apparitions, and maybe I changed my mind. But for me, it seems a little bit too
profitable.
Perfect.
Well, I think, like I said, this place has all the hallmarks and, all the ingredients to make a place truly terrifying. It's old, derelict, lot of history of suffering and pain, neglect. So I believe that there is a good chance that this place is very paranormally activated. The new owner's motives aside, whether they're trying to, profit that or not, do I believe the ghost shows and stuff like that? I would lean towards no, because you can't have a ghost show. You've never watched a ghost show where they just go to one of these places and they go, we didn't find anything this episode.
Ghosts. Yeah.
no ghosts. It was boring. Like you got to make it exciting. So it's like, you know, like I do believe that guy, if he wasn't, he, you know, maybe did have scratches before he entered there in the most haunted, because you need to make these things. But I think if you went in there with an open mind, no equipment, I think you may see some shit. And it's definitely on the bucket list for me. I'd love to go there and experience it once, sans recording equipment.
But with the Ouija board.
Yeah,
With
so
the Ouija
nobody can
board,
see you
yeah.
pissing your pants.
Yes, well, I wear a diaper.
We'll all catheter up just in case.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who's next?
I'll go. We'll let Andrew go last on this one. I think what we got here is a classic case of a residual haunting. You have so many, let's say if it's 100 deaths a year over, 50, 60 years, like we're still talking thousands of deaths, right?
Yeah.
So I think like this is a classic case of residual haunting. Like there's not like really poltergeist activity of like slamming doors. It's more like just like repeating events. Like people see the hearse, like that was like, that's a residual haunting, or like Timmy in the hallway, or like, so I think just like the mass traumatic death in this place has probably trapped, if you go
Like
with
the
that
energy.
the trapped souls theory of like people die in a traumatic way, and then for whatever reason their soul lingers there, and they're not like they're not haunting people. It's just like they're like forever. These events are trapped in time, is what it seems.
What's the one case we did with the cars that would drive by, and we talked about like maybe the
Ghost Road one.
Bachelor's Grove?
Was it the Bachelor's
Bachelor's
Grove?
Grove?
It's like and one of the theories was that like the actual like ground and the rocks and the dirt like
You're talking about
held
the stone tape theory or whatever.
Yeah, the stone tape theory. Yeah, like maybe it's something like that, right? Where it's like, yeah, you see these balls, but it's because that kid played with the ball and like he's just reliving that terrible
Stuck
energy
there
through
forever.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason
cool.
these people bought it, the reason you hear about all these stories after these people bought it, because they bought it with the intent to share the stories. It doesn't mean the stories hadn't been there the whole time. It's just they weren't made as a public tourist attraction. For tens, like what was it, 50, 60 years, people are dying here. There's not like a diary of nurses like reporting this stuff. Doesn't mean that, there hasn't been these like haunted sightings this whole time. It's just like when people buy it with intention to profit from ghost tours, then it of course it would make sense that as soon as they buy it, then the stories become, it becomes a marketing thing. Doesn't mean that it's, it's not haunted. I mean, it's thousands of deaths, traumatic deaths. That's what I think. Andrew?
Well, like I want to touch on like at the beginning where Braden said like this is a very negative place filled with pain and sorrow, but at the same time we got to realize like at the point in time that this place was created, this was the peak of innovation for treatment for tuberculosis. People went in there with fucking hope and dreams and thinking that they were going to get healthy. And these doctors and nurses and staff that worked there worked in this facility fully knowing that they were exposing their life to fucking extreme danger by contaminating themselves with tuberculosis. Like this was a center that was trying to help people. This was a hub in the city it was in. Like this wasn't a dark fucking cloud around this place. This was a symbol of hope, and people were going there to try and get better. Right? So these treatments that they received, the thoracotomies, the thoroplasty, where the lobectomies, where they're moving parts. Yes, they're traumatic and they're awful, but at the same time, like they are doing with their best intentions to help these people. What they were doing, we do a lot of those treatments still today, right? They weren't the most effective for tuberculosis, but like this was a center, like for us to go ahead and be like every single place where, mass people die from fucking illnesses is going to be haunted. Every single hospital that's been around since the 1800s is going to be fucking paranormally activated. Cancer centers are going to be paranormally activated. Like, I don't necessarily think that this is this big place of fucking doom and gloom like it's painted out to be. I feel like it's getting a bad rep for the people that fucking worked there and really tried to help people make a difference. I really think that they had their best intentions. And I think the guy that bought this fucking place,
What's
Mattingly,
what's the road to hell paved in?
good intentions. Oh. Anyways, Charlie Mattingly, the guy that bought this fucking place, is quoted for saying the only way I can afford to make these renovations is by making this place famous, right? And like Zell said, maybe he just wants to tell these stories and bring in people, or maybe he needs to pay for fucking some seriously expensive fucking renovations. That being said, would I fucking go to this place?
Yes.
Nope. Not a fucking chance. Not for $1 million. I'm not going to this fucking place.
You wouldn't go for $1 million.
This story scares the shit out of me. All right. The only type of spooky stories I like is when fucking Spooky Pete the prospector gets his mask taken off and he was groundskeeper Johnny the whole time. And a group of fucking teenagers and their Great Danes solved the fucking problem.
Yeah.
This shit's way too scary. Right.
You would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for the meddling kids.
Exactly. Like I'm not trying to say that this place isn't permanently activated because it just looking at it, you're like, yeah, I could walk by and be like, oh yeah, that place is fucking paranormally activated.
It looks
That's damn sure.
It looks haunted. It just looks haunted.
But at the same time, I don't think that like the history around this place is as negative as they're trying to make it out to be.
But we did talk about that. There was a time when funding decreased and the quality of care definitely took a turn for the worse.
In the 60s.
Yes.
Yes. But that was a very short period of time.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not like everyone had a heart of gold there. I'm sure there was some workers when people are on their way out that were just not
100%. But like, it's not like they're fucking drilling into people's brains and doing weird science experiments on them for their own fucking, gain, right?
They were doing the best they could with the information they had at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just the point I was trying to get across. Like because I fucked up and accidentally watched an actual like historical video on it first for an hour and a half. I was in the sauna.
Don't
and I'm
do
like,
that.
This place doesn't sound bad at all. Like this place sounds great. Like, so
Boom.
That being said, I'm not fucking going there. Not a chance.
Next pod trip, Waverly,
somewhere warm, not Kentucky.
Waverly
Universal Studios.
Definitely not Kentucky. They have a very failing infrastructure in there. It's not a nice place to be. Like, if we're gonna go somewhere, I'd rather go to the Trans-Allegheny Sanatorium. Like, go to that one. That one's nicer.
Or we could go to Universal Studios or something cool.
Yeah,
like,
that too. I could do that.
There's a haunted
Universal
house
Studios
there.
is haunted. That people say that.
Or you go to like the old Nickelodeon place
fucking
that they closed down.
Braden's house is haunted now too. It seems like so.
My house is
I
fine.
don't want
There's
to go.
nothing wrong
Braden's
with my
house doesn't have roller coasters, so I don't want to go to Braden's house.
It's fun.
Now,
Fun haunted one to look into.
I mean, normally, like, this is a weird thing, like, because normally this part of the show we fire up the randomatron, but
Gone. Still, I have a guy working on a code for me to try and track it down. So when it connects, if it does connect to the internet, wherever it may be, we might be able to find it.
you can try.
Yeah, it might have something to do with the dual quantum random matrix that we installed in that thing. I bought that from some guy that I thought was legit, but I'm not 100% sure now when I think about it. I can't even go back to the guy. Like, I was trying to ask about some of the parameters and things that they had used or tested it under. I'm not 100% sure they actually tested it on anything. I'm sure maybe we had gotten some kind of a
Dude, the last
it's looking
thing
like
said,
it's not even like a full production line variant. It's like a
No.
prototype or something.
Should we just do like theory of the week then?
Yeah, I mean, the randomatron achieved quantum randomness, it said, and teleported. So God knows where it is. Yeah,
Maybe not even him.
yeah. Let's get into a little theory of the week. We got to give it this week to what was his buff? What was his buddy's? Fuck. Ding Daddy.
Ding Daddy.
Ding Daddy.
Ding Daddy.
Ding Daddy on Patreon for sending in what seems to be a Bigfoot track in the sand.
Yep. Braden rated it on a scale to 0 to Gimlin.
Gimlin.
What'd you give it?
Gave it a
Full Gimlin?
Yeah. Unequivocal proof of Bigfoot.
If you're watching the live stream here, you can see it on Discord. It's a Bigfoot track. It's got a weird thing in the heel, but
The weird thing in the heel and the toes look a little wonky.
they look a little too
It's a fucking
round.
Bigfoot foot.
They look a little too round, but
It's got to be wonky. It's a Bigfoot foot.
Bigfoot's foot
Bigfoot
got a little
foot?
bubbly,
Yeah, a
bubbly
Bigfoot's
toes.
foot. They don't? I don't know. Have you seen one?
Foot.
No.
you know what?
Can you compare it to any? So you don't fucking know.
But you know what I want to see on this, Ding Daddy. If you have more pictures, because we have what looks like a left foot print here. in sand. So there has to be more prints as it walks in sand. There's no way there's not more than one. Unless it jumped to like the water's edge and then the tide took out all of them except for this one. But it looks like there should be more.
Well, one footprint is great. I think I said it on there when they sent it in because I love Bigfoot shit. And it's like, if you have Bigfoot evidence of footprints, I'm like, you can tell a lot from two footprints, like where their placement is. You can tell at least like height, weight,
stride
length.
Kind of stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff an experienced tracker could tell from a good set of prints, So if you ever see one, you don't need to get a plaster cast necessarily. That would be awesome. But if you ever see footprints out in the woods, Pacific Northwest or whatever, like take a couple pictures from different angles. Like don't just take one picture of 1 foot. Like
measurements, if you can get something to reference, like a stick,
banana for scale or something.
But what if he travels like the Hulk, like just bounding, and that's why he just pressed down the 1 foot and fucking gonzo.
Well, but even then, if he did that, like the footprint would be like way down in the.
But
dirt,
he's also like Legolas.
He also
light,
weighs like 12
powerful.
pounds. Like, okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
he's been into intermittent fasting lately.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, he's a little light.
IF gives you fucking superpowers now.
Makes you very, very light on your feet.
He's already got them. Gamma radiation gave him that.
All right, let's get to new Patreon supporters.
All right. If you're not supporting the show and you want early access, bonus stuff, all the other goodies, head over to patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast, or you can find in the link tree on all our socials. You can't miss it. This week's supporters: Anthony Willard, Betania Grossen, Lee Breyer, Jonathan Burris, Scudian, Richmond Robinson, Blake Cates, and Michael Monster. Thank you very much for supporting the show.
And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the sky.
See you in After Hour.
Good, but I'm way on board with it. Like when we researched this, there was a super lack of spooky shit to look into.
I don't know why people call it. They say it's one of the spookiest places on the earth, and I don't get it. Like
Charlie Madden,
watching the Ghost Hunter show, they weren't 100% sure about like what they had gotten. They're like, I don't like. They said something about the ball, but like Braden said, it's like this is an old, dilapidated hospital, the sanatorium. Like it could easily be something like the floor is slanted and it rolled a little bit. Like it's just, I don't know what it's done.
If this
to
place
earn
was
that.
framed, say this is a wood frame place and it was built in the 20s or whatever.
It was earlier than that.
So they're guaranteeing if they're building with wood, like using wood joists.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.